Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you may be. Hi, it's Dave, and it's Topless Tuesday. It's just too hot down here in South Georgia to be wearing and the humidity, oh my goodness. Trying to have a thunderstorm right now. It's Tuesday, July the 31st, and it's about 6:47 Eastern Daylight Time. And I greet you with blessings, welcome, and big hugs from all around. Anyway, so I just had to do it Topless Tuesday. Okay, never mind. I hope you get the humor. Anyway, there's a lot of stuff going on around about 3D guns, and oh my God, now that are 3D printers that somehow people can manufacture their own guns. All right, well, let me put some things clear first. All right. Yes, you could make gun parts, but they're going to be out of plastic. Okay. So, how many things can you make out of plastic? How many times can you shoot a gun made out of plastic that's going to be worth anything? Now, I got my first job as a machinist about 1971. Okay. So, I've been working in the business for a long time. I worked at a place called Aerodyne Investment Casting, where you first made the parts out of plastic, much like the 3D printers are doing now, except they used mold injection and so forth. But they used a similar type of plastics. It has to melt at a low enough temperature. It has to be viscous enough in order to make the part, so forth. So there are certain conditions that have been in the industry for 50, 60 years, okay? It's also called the lost wax. Now, in order to get the part, when you made it out of the plastics and the wax, you had to then coat that item with ceramic, different layers, different types, and then you built a tree of different parts on it, and then you stuck it in the oven after this all dried. This would take a week to do, okay, with the ceramic coatings and so forth. And then you'd put that item with all the ceramic on it and put it in the oven. Really hot oven, like 1800 degree kind of oven. Melt all the wax out. And then you melt metal in a separate container and then pour it into the empty vessel of ceramic. And that makes your part with the metal. Now, that doesn't mean that the part is finished. You still have to machine it and do other kinds of things. Now, people are freaking out over this thing about 3D printed guns. Now, let me tell you here, as a machinist, you can get a small CNC type milling machine in the business. CNC is computer numeric control. In other words, it will look at a CNC machine. You program it in with a piece of metal, and you tell it what to do, and it goes over and it mills it off and it chops it off, cuts it off, whatever it needs to do. It can drill holes. You have to flip it over and do other side, but that's not the point. The point of the matter is computer numeric controlled CNC milling machines have been around for 30 years. They're about, from what I've seen of some of these 3D printers, about the same kind of footprint. But the thing is that you can make things out of metal with your computer and a little bit of software. And it's not any harder than trying to print something 3D with a plastic injection molding. Now, so people are freaking out over this. I mean, even some of the best nylons and things, if you could mold pieces with your 3D printer, it's still going to be out of some type of plastic. Now, you can put you can make a trigger that's out of Delron or nylon or some type of, but those are special types of materials, nylons, so forth. Anyway, some of them are quite gummy to try to machine. They're not difficult, but they're gummy. It takes a little while. And if you're trying to make money off the deal anyway. So But I've made all kinds of parts with Delron and nylon and different grades of these things, okay? And I've used them in manufacturing areas. And something that a machine just, a machine that cycles 40 times in 1 minute. Bam, 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 bam. And there's a Delron insert, and there's a piece of there's a rod, for example, that will go through, and we've made bushings out of Delron. There are a lot of bushings made out of Delron and types of nylon anyway. And there are specific ones that are specific types of nylons and Delrons that you can use. That actually, there is as it wears, there's almost like an oil that comes out, like a Teflon kind of coating. So the metal object, that rod that you have, that might be going in and out, in and out, in and out, testing something, whatever it is. And so that these things don't wear out. But now, anytime you heat any of these things up, they're going to deform. So if you pop a cap in any type of plastic 3D gun, it's not going to last. You would have to put some type of steel insert inside that Delron or nylon, excuse me, or whatever the plastic that you're using. But if it's a 3D printer, I have not heard yet where they're able to take liquid metal and print something in 3D. Haven't heard it. So in other words, 3D printing is good for simply making a mold to make a gun. The gun is just going to look like a gun. It might feel like a gun, but the texture is still going to be plastic. I don't care what you say about it. So there are people who are freaking out over this stuff. If you could fire it, it's only going to fire once, maybe twice. And then I wouldn't fire that thing again. It's going to deform the bullet. The chances are when it fires in any type of plastic type of situation, it's going to melt the plastic to the casing, and you won't be able to get the shell back out once it's fired. There would be no way to eject it. And if you did leave enough clearance, then it would wobble too much. And when it did fire, the chance for the bullet going off to the side or whatever, it just doesn't make sense. And people are freaking out over this stuff. I've been a machinist since I'll be 66 in 2 months. And I'm here to tell you, been in all kinds of machining operations, stamping. I've used to program CNC machines to drill, whatever. Let me tell you, this is a bunch of horse manure. Build a gun. Okay, what are you going to do with it? It's plastic. Get over this, folk. Oh my God, now the president has well, he's not really thinking about, a 3D printed gun. What are you going to do with a plastic gun? Pay attention. It's plastic. Yeah, it's 3D. Yeah, you can print it. Yeah, it's going to look just like a Luger or whatever you want. That's not the point. Are you going to be able to fire it? Once, maybe twice if you're stupid enough. But what is this with oh my God, you can print a gun, 3D print a weapon. Made out of plastic. Made out of plastic. It's not metal. So unless you take that plastic, like I just described in there 7 minutes ago, unless you make a mold with that plastic and then melt the plastic out and then fill the mold with metal, you're not going to have, it's not going to do you any good. It's still going to be a plastic gun. It's going to be a toy. Why are people freaking out over 3D printed guns? They're plastic. I'm sorry. With all the intelligence of people around, they're like, oh my God, you can print this. Let's go back. People, if you don't understand what 3D printing is, do a little homework, please. 3D printing is made with different types of grades of plastic. like a milk jug or like the top in a milk jug. You have to use particular types of plastic because in order to make the plastic flow, you have to have the heat just right. You have to have the extruder that goes through before it starts printing. You have to have the right temperature of the piece that you're printing to, because if it gets too cold and then you try to melt something next to it in the 3D printing mode, it won't stick to it. Okay, so there are a lot of variables, but for people to be weirding out with the fact that they think that you can print a 3D gun that's going to turn into a weapon, I'm sorry. You haven't done your homework and you're screaming at the top of your lungs over something you do not understand and you don't have a clue. So the clue is, like I said, I have not heard of any type of metal 3D printing. If it is, we can't buy it. But you could buy a small used CNC milling machine or a brand new one for a couple grand, and you can make parts out of metal. You could make a real gun. Nobody's talking about CNC machines that have been out there for 30, 40 years. Nobody's thinking about that. Oh my God, I can use my computer and build a real freaking gun out of metal that would hold up for more than one shot or two shots. Are you kidding me? So if you've got somebody in your area or around you or a friend or a neighbor or somebody that's freaking out about this 3D gun printing, remind them it's plastic. It's plastic. None of us normal Joes could afford, if they have one, a 3D printer that prints with metal. That's going to be something I want to see, because that's really difficult. It'd be like constantly welding and welding and welding and welding. I don't know of anything that does that yet. Not to the common person. Okay. So like I say, you can get a CNC milling machine to build a gun with. All you got to do, if you're wise enough to figure out how to do a 3D printer, you're going to be smart enough to figure out a CNC machine, which means either way, you're going to be able to make it out of plastic. And if you use a CNC machine, you'll be able to make it out of metal. So unless you plan on just building models of guns and say, see, I printed a Luger. It doesn't fire. But it looks like one. I can paint it black, and the best thing it'll be good for is a toy. So quit freaking out about 3D printed guns. Whoever's going to go to that much trouble to, quote, build a gun is going to get a CNC machine and a drill press and make a real gun. They're printing out the guns because they can. It's an interesting project that can be shared. But I'm telling you, even if you printed up a Derringer, a one-shot deal, that's all you're going to get out of this thing. As soon as it fires, the plastic's going to melt and deform, and you'll never be able to fire another one unless you put metal inside it. And if you do that, well, okay, good. But you can make a gun out of PVC plastic if you knew what you were doing. And if you put a steel insert in there with a pin and a nail, I mean, you can use a rubber band and fire a rim shot weapon. But for people to be freaking out over this 3D printed gun stuff is nonsense. So tell your friends. This is going to be a really fast one for Mr. Dave on Topless Tuesday, by the way. I hope you're having a good day. But if anybody is freaking out around you or whatever, be nice, but just tell them, remember, they can print all the 3D weapons they want to, but they're all plastic. Okay? So even if you put a steel insert into the plastic, the heat from the discharge of the weapon is going to deform the the plastic or whatever the mix is. I'm not fully aware of the types of plastics that are available, but they're still plastics. That's how they can be 3D printers. So tell your friends, tell your neighbors, quit freaking out about the 3D gun printing business because it's just nonsense. They're just trying to start a bunch of crap up. Okay? So pay attention, be lovely to each other, be kind, be honest, be compassionate, feed someone if you can, help somebody out on the side of the road, whatever it is. But love your neighbor, even if they don't like you too much. So, with that, have a good evening, and I will talk to you soon. Have a good one. Topless Tuesday.